What's up? I am David Long, here to talk with you today and do some Q&A. How's everybody feeling? Hope you're doing real well. Still waiting for people to make it into the group. As you can see, I'm fresh-faced and cleanly shaven since last time you've seen me. Or, you know, I got some scruff growing in, but I'm like a snake. I shed my skin every so often and cut off all my hairs and start over. It's part of my spiritual practice as described in a couple of my videos. Those of you who know about that type of stuff. So let me tell you about some of the things that I have been working on before we jump into the questions. So for example, recently I put out my Florida vlog. Some of you may have seen that, a vlog about my trip to Florida. I have one more vlog coming out. Well, I'll have more than that, but this will be my 12th vlog and it will be a year since I've been making vlogs. And so I'm calling that season 1. And I'm gonna reframe what I'm gonna try to do, and I'm gonna try to do one vlog a month. There's Daniel. Good to see you, buddy. Okay, so I was just talking about some of the stuff that I have been working on and releasing lately. I put out my vlog, my trip to Florida. I had a great talk with my buddy Daniel Fox on his page, and that's linked below in this group as well, and probably if you're watching this on my wall, it's probably there as well. You can also check it out on Daniel's wall. That's where all the discussion happened. If you can, follow the link back to the original post, because in the comments there's lots of links to other videos and discussions. We had a real good talk, don't you think, Daniel? Pretty good, right? I'm looking forward to having a talk with him, and maybe next time he can come on my channel and we'll talk here. I think that was the plan. So let's see, what else do I got going? Some of you guys know that Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson met up and did about 4 live talks in person, and some of you also know that some of my most popular YouTube videos have been around the criticism and critique of Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, and I was real excited, and I know that some of my fans who like my critiques of their work are real excited to see what I'll have to say about this stuff. And I want you to know that I've been working hard on this, just to give you some kind of an insight into my process. I downloaded all those videos, so that's about 8 hours of videos, right? And then I combed through that and edited all down to the most essential bits of the points, the most pointy points of each bit, and then I recategorize all that. So before I'm even thinking about making a video, I'm combing through this stuff and editing it for hours. I basically spent all day yesterday and like 4 hours the day before and probably like another 4 hours today, just getting it down to its essence. So right now I got that 8 hours down to about 3 hours. That means I edited out about 5 hours worth of content. What I've noticed as I was doing this is all of these overarching patterns, and so I'm making notes about the patterns I'm seeing as I'm doing it, and then each one of those things I'll make a montage about those things. So basically I start with the actual video. It's like if I was going to respond to what someone else was saying, like if they wrote me out something, I would want to address all their points, but I would also want to summarize, so that way it doesn't take longer to address their points than it does to watch the actual first videos. This is supposed to be a meta-analysis. I can't play you those 3 hours of edited down video, the summary video or whatever. Maybe I'll make something like that available if I can without getting my channel taken down. Anyways, so I'm in the process of making something like that, and know that there is an in-depth process that goes into making a video like that. It's not just like I watch the video and then I jump on the camera and tell you what I think about it in some kind of smug way. No. I put a lot of time and a lot of thought and a lot of effort and a lot of energy into making these videos. Like I have barely even begun to make it and I've already spent like over 20 hours on it. If that gives you some kind of perspective into the kind of quality job I'm trying to do on this video for you guys. I appreciate the fact that these are popular and important videos and these are important topics, and I want to do a good job. So that's one thing that I can talk about. Another thing I want to talk about is that I'm going to be starting doing different things with Patreons, right? So it's going to coincide with this new season of my vlog, and I'm just going to be sort of stepping it up and upgrading. What's up, John? Hope you're doing well, bud. Good to see you, man. I'm just talking about how I'm going to be upgrading the way that I'm dealing with Patreons. Basically, I'm going to have a screen at the end of all my videos on YouTube that say the names of all my Patreons, and I'm going to be giving a monthly giveaway. I'm not sure exactly where, maybe here in the group or at the end of my vlogs on YouTube, a book and like a package of some kind of maybe my art and some like a CD and a sticker or something like that. Some kind of like monthly giveaway. I haven't figured out exactly how. If you have suggestions about how I could do that, I'm totally open to that. You can hit me up down below. But basically I'm trying to figure out how to make that something more valuable and special and not just a place for people to donate. What's up, Jake? Hope you're doing well, bud. Thanks for joining us, joining the conversation. I'm just talking about my Patreons. So we're gonna have a monthly giveaway. I'm gonna put everybody's names on the crawls on the end of my video. I also also need to make a little bit more of an effort to reach out to people and ask for support on this Patreon thing, because what I want to do is I want to upgrade my Photoshop account to include the editing program as well. I think that's like 30 something bucks a month. My webpage is like 15 something dollars a month. We're getting close to like $45, $50 a month that I pay out of pocket just to be able to do this stuff. That's the cost to me, and I think I'm only making like half that in Patreons right now. One thing I need to do is be better at asking for money. So if you really like me and support what I do, I mean, look, you can literally ask me a question down there and I'm going to tell you face to face the answer. There's like real engagement happening here. If we could really value this a little bit, even to the point of giving $1 a month, that's $12 a year, right? If everybody did that, I would be making enough money to be able to do this mostly full time, especially if everyone gave $2 a month. That's $24 a year. $2 a month, right? That's like 50 cents a week. You know what I mean? I don't want to put anybody out. I'm not trying to break anybody's bank or really even ask for that much. But if you value what I do, if you want to support and help out, you could give a little bit, and if everybody gave a little bit, that would make a lot of a difference. And I'd be able to spend a lot more time making a lot more content from you. I know we'll get there. My subscribers are building up. There's more and more interest around what I'm doing. I'm doing a lot more work to be consistently bringing you content like these live videos. So I'm trying to do everything I can to step up my game on my side. That's what's up. Thank you, John. Someone's already agreeing to throw down a little bit on this. Yeah, I'm not really good at asking for money. You know, I'll ask like, hey, support me on Patreon. And I try to talk about it when people prompt me here or there. But really, I'm not ever going to live like a wealthy person. A little bit goes a long way for me. And I would really like to be doing this full time. It's my goal. I really want to be able to make art for you guys full time and fully engage with being a full-time intellectual philosopher artist. I want to be able to be traveling city to city, country to country, to be able to be talking about this stuff and doing art and rapping and all my stuff. I want to be able to be free enough to be able to do that. And I swear, I'll bring value to the table. I'm not just talking dish over here. People who know me have known me long enough to know that I'm going to keep doing this stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and move on. So, trying to upgrade my side of the Patreon stuff and do a little bit better. I'm going to be starting a new season of vlogs, just doing a vlog a month. One vlog a month is my goal. One integral review a month is my goal. These Q&As bi-weekly, and then on the other bi-weekly, we're going to have an interview of some kind, right? So every week, I'm going to be bringing you content, and then it's also my goal to make like another philosophy video, like one a month, like that pre-trans video that I brought you, or, you know, I'm working on a couple more videos coming down, but I'm trying to bring you something every week, and maybe even up to 2 things every week. I really want to be able to be consistently bringing you good stuff, and so I'm trying to figure out how I can organize my life around making these things happen and being consistent. I'm sure it's frustrating to be like, hey, I'm wanting to work on this new thing, and then you hear me talk about it, and then sometimes it doesn't happen. Well, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that it's not a project in the works. There's just so many projects and only so little time. I have to spend 30 hours a week or something like that at a part-time job, so that takes up a lot of my time and energy. And as you know, if you work all day, you come home, you don't want to work more, you want to chill, which is very hard to deal with. Anyways, so I want to jump into some of these questions. I know John asked a really good question. I'm gonna go over to the computer now with this thing, and we're gonna read it together, because I can't read it on this thing because I'm talking to you on this thing. My computer is being so laggy lately because I've got so many things going on it. I've also been doing this production company on the side with my buddy Kai, telling you why while it takes time to come up. So we've been editing some videos for weddings and this local EDM show, and you can check out the link to some of that stuff on my YouTube page. There's a link on the side to Third Reality Productions. We're going to be making more and more stuff there. I really like my buddy Kai. It's great when you find like a local friend who gets some of the integral stuff. Man, it can be really, really lonely to be an integralist out here in the world. Always being undercover, feeling like nobody ever is really going to understand you, and so you're kind of always having to like translate to them. It can be very disheartening and frustrating and, yeah, very lonely. Someone asked me pretty recently, how do I deal? And sometimes it's hard to deal. Part of the answer to that is music. What's up? I don't know how to say your name. Is it Huso? Hi, just visiting for a while, but getting to bed soon and watching the video later. Okay, well, thanks for joining us, man. I hope you enjoy it when you watch later. Going back to this question of like, how do I deal? One of the best things has been like the integral community. Like I was saying before, making art and taking care of myself, eating well, all these kinds of things, they're very helpful. But honestly, you know, in terms of you show like that, okay, well, I'm trying. Yeah, so being a part of this community, being able to talk to y'all, like my friends and fans in this group are so cool. They're so smart. They have the best questions, and it definitely makes me feel a lot less alone, a lot less in it by myself. And I was talking to Rob about this kind of stuff. I know that me, myself, I can't do all this stuff to change the world, but knowing that there's other people out there who care about these things, and that I can maybe put out my ideas, and once they're out there in the world, that maybe someone else will be able to act on them, even if I can't do it myself. This is all like a huge relief to know that it's not all up to me. You know, like so much mythology, the story of the hero, of the one, and you know, it's like, you're the one, Neo, you're the one. And this is also, you know, so many postmodernists, they believe they're going to have some kind of special magic for themselves. It's all this kind of narcissism. But yeah, the dark side of that narcissism is feeling all the weight of that on your shoulders. Like, I'm the one, I gotta do all this? That's a lot. So yeah, knowing you're not the one, there's this new emerging stage of development, and that we're going to be able to do it together. That's a huge relief. A huge relief. And knowing that there's other people who get this stuff. Major relief. Okay, I was able to bring it up. So let me read John's question to you. It's a good one. Great example of what I'm talking about some smart questions. I'm still hoping someone can come up with a good metaphor analogy for explaining why, how individuals have the ability to experience states of consciousness, but their inability to see structures, stages, or waves of consciousness until integral. I think a lot of it is just about language is the problem. And I was talking about this a little bit with Daniel a couple of days ago when I was talking on his page with him. And the analogy that I use, I don't know if this is getting close to something that you would like or not, is actually KRS-One's analogy. KRS says,
you don't see with your eyes, you see with your brain.
Or our mind.
And the more words your brain has, the more things you can see.
So people know about moods and states because people will tell other people, I'm in a bad mood, leave me alone. So that's like a factor in people's awareness generally when they are going to try to deal with a problem in the world. They're going to be like, got to make sure they're in a good mood. Becomes an important factor. Whereas these ideas about like, well, they're a Christian. I mean, people do make these distinctions. They just don't have a good way to talk about it. They'll say this person's smart or that person's immature or but they're a Christian or but they're an atheist or whatever. They're talking about worldviews or the differences, but they don't think of them necessarily as stages, in part because talking about stages in this way, this developmental language is rooted in some actual knowledge of science and maps. Part of the reason why a lot of integralists start to see this kind of stuff is because there are rudimentary maps about it too. There are old-fashioned ways of talking about it. Like, for example, I might have talked about it before in terms of like chakras or something like that. People do have rudimentary ways of talking about it. But yeah, it becomes a lot more skillful at these integral stages. Going back to the language thing too, with KRS-One, he says like, imagine you're a plumber and you go into a room, or you're an electrician, or you're a this or a that. Every person who's used to thinking through a certain lens is going to think about things differently depending on what their knowledge set is. This is more like lines, right? But it's getting at these kinds of different lenses that we have to look at the world in, a different language that we have to use. People talk about it like in the New Age community sometimes in terms of like dimensions, like, oh, if you want to get up to the fifth dimension or whatever. I don't know, the language around a lot of that stuff is really confused. Like a lot of New Agers want to use sciencey language like energy and vibrations and dimensions and all this kind of stuff to be able to talk about their woo-woo. It might be good poetry, but it's also confusing. Confusing language games. Confused and confusing. Okay, so the second, there's more to his question here. That's just the first paragraph. There's 3 paragraphs. Maybe this is basic stuff found in the books, but I'm also struggling to understand or recall how each stage transcends and includes the prior waves, and that until integral, each stage thinks it's the only right one. But then how does green seem so irrational? I know green is attached to purple, but why doesn't its closer neighbor of amber, orange, modern, which is just translated from trump that interest? Okay, this is a good question, and there are reasons for it. One of the reasons is that when you go through a stage of, it's like when you just learned something was wrong, you'll see it everywhere. Kind of like if you just got a new car, now you see that car everywhere. So it's like once you've identified a problem, you're like, oh, I see that problem. I see it. Then you grow this like big shadow and allergy around it. And then anytime anyone ever brings it up or you mention it or you see it, you immediately go, I see you. I see you. And every stage is like an antithetical reaction to the previous stage because the subject of one stage becomes the object of the next stage. Like the metaphor of the fish in the water. You know, the older fish swims by the 2 younger fish and he's like, the water's fine today, isn't it, boys? And they're like, what's water? They're so in it that they can't even see it. So the next highest stage, the subject of that stage becomes the object of the next stage. So when a person grows out of a traditional stage into a modern stage, all they talk about is how traditional ideas are wrong and harmful and bad and confused and confusing. Rationality is where it's at. And then the next highest stage is all talking about is like rationality turned on rationality. It's like, well, even this stuff is just a relative way of talking about things. And different people are at different stages. So what's good for you might not be good for someone else. Okay, so another part of the problem here. So not only is there the problem of this reactionary antithetical allergy to the previous stage, right? It's only at the next stage, it's only at the integral stage that you get the synthesis of green and orange. Green and orange together, the synthesis is integral. This is the Hegelian dialectic, right? So there's a thesis, traditionalism. Out of that grows the antithesis, the antithesis. And then when those two collide long enough, there grows out of that conversation a synthesis, which becomes the new thesis. So that's part of it. The other part is, I see that you're Zeitgeist, you're commenting more, but I'm going to continue down this line until I get to a place I'm a little bit more comfortable to stop without getting derailed. Zeitgeist. Another point here is that a lot of these people who are talking green language aren't actually green. They haven't actually matured up to a green stage. stage. What's happened is that postmodern ideas have become part of the conventional ideas of the zeitgeist. And then less conventional people who come up who are raised by postmodern parents or baby boomer parents or in a postmodern society with their teachers and stuff, they get all of these postmodern values trained into them. And so things like don't judge and things like that are actually dogma, zeitgeist. And I made a video about this a while back. It's posted on my YouTube page. It's something like why spiral dynamics shows that the singularity is not possible. And it's basically talking about how there's real postmodernists who are really mature and wise and have these deep insights into relativism, a mature version of relativism. And then there are people who take it in kind of a dogmatic way. And this becomes a major developmental problem too, because when postmodern ideas become dogmatic, there's often not really an ability to live for something higher. It's like my truth and your truth, and I respect your truth, you leave my truth alone. And all this kind of appeals to personal experience. And so if you don't really get to die to yourself and live for something higher like you would at the traditional stage, you're not really at the traditional stage, you're not really at the rational stage, and you're not really at the postmodern stage. So where does that put you? Basically, it puts you at red, some kind of purpley red, some kind of tribal egoicism. And so a lot of this mean green meme, like this dogmatic green stuff, is actually arrested development. It becomes super problematic. Part of what we want to do at an integral stage of development when we start to figure this stuff out is to work with the spiral in a way that enables people to grow from the earliest stages all the way up without getting stuck, without getting distracted, in a fluid way that encourages development and encourage people to get to their highest stages. And it is interesting to see what can happen when any of these lower first tier stages take over. It becomes pathological, and it not only affects the development of the culture at large, but it affects the development of all the individuals who have to grow up in these structures. So, okay, we covered a lot of things there. We went super in depth. Okay, so we're talking about the ways that spiral dynamics has a lot of complexity to it. It's not just as simple as you're a green or you're a blue. And this is part of why it's important to understand the difference between this kind of stuff and the freshman integral stuff, is because when you really start to understand that it's ideas that are at these stages, then you can understand how a person from lower stages might adopt a higher idea, like don't judge, in service of egotistical drive, like to protect their bullshit, or even dogmatic drives to protect their dogma. Let me read the rest of your thing. It seems that even as we slowly access the whole spiral in us, we seem to be able to move up stages before fully mastering them, right? So it's kind of a question of, is there a minimum requirement before being able to shift up? Is that minimum requirement completely unique to each individual, or might there be a way to describe a handful of types of basic minimum requirements before we can shift up? And these kinds of questions, they're so awesome. This is the kind of question of a person who's really trying to figure out how to apply this stuff in the most skillful way, who really wants to see into this stuff deep and really, I mean, I love this stuff, John. You're awesome. So the idea is that some lines depend on other lines for their growth. For example, we talk about how cognitive development is necessary but not sufficient for moral development. In other words, you have to be able to see things as a problem, understand them, know that they're out there before you can even give your care to them and know how to skillfully engage with that thing. So there's definitely a link between understanding as a cognitive process and understanding as compassion. But yeah, I do think that the cognitive line will often run ahead of these other lines, and there will be some kind of cognitive dissonance that happens. We talk about these different stages where we apply translation versus transformation, right? People are new to a stage, they're still getting used to it, they have a lot to learn there. It's good to use translation, to work with them where they're at, to not try to take away their thing, but to help them to be better at what they're doing, right? And then there are people who are stagnant in the stage, they're going to be there forever. We're going to use translation with them too. But then there are people who are experiencing this kind of cognitive dissonance where you can tell they have some ideas that are higher and better, that are pulling them up, and then some ideas that are lower and not as good, that are holding them back. And they're having all kinds of problems coming up in the world, in their life, in situations. And there's some real breakdown that's starting to happen. And this is where some skillful transformation and some guidance from someone who knows what they're doing from the higher stage can be really important and super helpful. So knowing what the stages are is a good way to do this, and then starting to figure out how to test people to see kind of where they're at in the process, to see what kind of insights and tools people have to work with and what kind of work you have to go back down the spiral to do to really be able to move up. For example, I have a close friend who I'm teaching, and he's learning a lot of this kind of integral stuff, and he's doing really well, and he's making tons of progress. But a lot of what we're doing is going back and learning Orange, because there's stuff in there like logical fallacies and some of the basic structures and methodologies of Orange that he just never learned. That's a bit of a travesty that our school system has failed him in this kind of way, where they haven't taught him this kind of stuff. But for some reason, these things like logic are special things that you only get when you're in college. Maybe if you go in a certain kind of direction, you would think something like logic should be something that every high school graduate should have some basic knowledge of, but I digress. Let me read your comment up here if I can. Okay, so it's a weird paradox where you treat the previous stage as an object, but also are almost too close to see it objectively. Very true. Yes. That's part of the problem too, is when you've identified a problem in it, you might have a problem reintegrating it. Once an idea that you loved, then you start to spot the problems with it, right? You go from being a Christian to being like, oh my God, this stuff falls apart when you really look at it, to then being anti-Christian for a while. Probably I was. I was like, oh, this is the worst thing that has ever happened to humanity. And then someone gave me some Joseph Campbell, and I was like, oh, okay, I see now the baby in this bathwater. But sometimes I think it's good to go through a period of being disconnected from these things, or to deconstruct these things. It's good to go through a period of time where Christianity is bullish before you reintegrate Christianity. It might even be good to stay in that spot for a little while and to really get in touch with all the ways that it's bullish before you come back to it and then start to rescue some of the baby from that bathwater or the diamond from that dunghill. Because if you rush straight from being into it to then wanting to reintegrate it, maybe you haven't fully taken enough time to transcend before you rush into re-including. So it's good to take some time with this kind of stuff. And if we don't, we're going to have to go back and do our homework and then fully do that work to transcend the thing. So this is a little bit of what we're having to deal with in Integral now, is that to some extent we haven't fully transcended the blue and the green aspects of it, and so we're having to go back and do some work to reintegrate some orange. And that's why orange is like the main insult that you get whenever you bring up criticisms about how Ken Wilber is it up. Oh, you're just orange. Anyways, maybe I'm getting off topic there. Let me read another one of these comments. Thanks for the reminder of the video. So there's a bunch of people who are developmentally really having a center of gravity at blue, amber, conventional, but the convention is green pluralism, right? Or even red and blue kind of conventionalism, a very kind of simple, like, well, I'm living my life, I'm going to work, this is what people seem to think, you're not supposed to judge, it's not nice, that's just how we all play along and get along and go about our day. But really, I only care about myself, and I'm living in kind of a materialistic way. And a lot of people hang out at red, let's be honest, and a lot of people who say they're green hang out at red. They don't really care about shit. Maybe they're like, yeah, we all love everyone, but they pay lip service to that issue. They don't really actively go out and try to do anything about it, which is one of the criticisms that you get of the left all the time, right? Is that they're so happy to like carry a sign and go dance around about it, but they hardly ever will really put their money where their mouth is. They hardly ever want to really get involved in the hard work that actually is going to make things better. They just want a virtue signal. And this is one of the criticisms of the social justice warriors and stuff like that, that there's a lot of virtue signaling. And let's be honest, also the idea of social justice warrior as being a pejorative, being a negative thing, that's not good. A social justice warrior should be a good thing if they're doing it right. I experienced that repulsion, integration as an ongoing pendulum. Yeah, we got to engage with this stuff. Part of being an integralist is to do your shadow work, to do your homework, to get involved, to dig deeper, to go back down and to really learn how to integrate the best of these stages, the values and the lessons at these stages, and to really be able to touch base and love people at these stages right where they're at, as well as be critical of them from within their value system. Alyosha says, it seems this anger toward a color you overgrew is almost natural. Yeah, exactly. Eventually, as an integralist, you go back down and you integrate your shadow. That's what we're talking about here. Okay, so there's another question here from, oh, he told me how to say it. It's like, you show? Oh man, I'm messing it up. I'm sorry. You show. I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name, buddy. I'm trying. He said there are some people in the Zeitgeist movement, and it took me a lot of practice to get Alyosha Kutniak. It's hard. I want to say Alyosha spent a good 5-10 minutes with me working on getting his name right. So I'm sorry to people who have names that I can't pronounce. I still love you, buddy. I'm trying over here. There are some people in the Zeitgeist movement that are spreading the information about spiral dynamics, and I think the interest is growing there. I am an active member of the movement. I know you have mentioned the movement a couple of times in the videos, so here is a question. Sorry if it's too specific and requires too much knowledge about the movement. How do you think we should take SDI into account in our activism or in the public discourse we have? Great question. So I don't know how long you've been a part of the Integral community, buddy, but back in the day when they were having the Occupy Wall Street stuff, we did some talks called Occupy Integral, and it was very much like a green kind of, let's all talk about it. And we all talked about it, and we did a lot of like spinning in circles, and kind of gets to the point where you're like, okay, so we've all talked about the problems, we all see what they are, there's a lot of ideas on the table, so what are we going to do about it? I don't know. Well, what do you think? Well, I don't know. What do you think? Like, how are we going to decide? How are we going to decide? We're going to take a vote. This becomes the problem with green. Like, one of the best things about being an integralist is that we actually have integral tools to be able to bring to the table about how to make decisions and how to come to actual conclusions about some of this stuff and figure out how to move. So my advice would be, of course, it would be good to spread knowledge about integral and stuff like that, but maybe there are ways to more implicitly, as an integralist, set up some of our best integral tools, like our integral governance tools and our integral marketing tools have these in our back pocket and bring them to the table to be able to help the community. Now, that's very vague. Let me expand on that a little bit. One of the videos that I think that you should check out is on my YouTube page, and it's a re-upload of Barrett Brown. I'll also post it in the comments down below. And he talks about integral marketing, and he talks about a 4-quadrant approach to marketing. And this is actually something that the Zeitgeist movement could benefit from as well, because some people have been critical of them to say that they don't actually have a 4-quadrant approach to this thing. And that's probably true. They have more of like a lower right quadrant analysis and stuff like that. I mean, let me be clear. Peter Joseph is one of my favorite people. He's super inspiring to me. Like you said, I've talked about Zeitgeist movement before, and maybe you've heard me be a little bit critical about the Zeitgeist movement. But let me also be clear. If you're listening to this and you haven't seen the Zeitgeist films, you haven't seen Peter Joseph's work, I would highly encourage you to go spend some time with that. And he did a Culture in Decline series that was really good as well. This is another dude just like me who's a creator, who's an artist first and philosopher second, kind of more out of a passion than really necessarily wanting that to be his first focus. I highly respect that, feeling the need to be pulled into these things and to get involved. The Zeitgeist movement grew up around him organically. It was never his goal to have a movement, which kind of shows up in the movement, to be honest. But I love the passion around that project. I love him. He's much more articulate than I could ever hope to be. He's very well spoken. I have a high level of admiration for him. Big fan of Peter Joseph. So going back to what I was saying about this video, but I just wanted to be clear about that. Big fan of Peter Joseph. Yeah, you should check out this Barrett Brown video. It starts out with this understanding of a 4-quadrant approach to a problem, and then it talks about integral marketing and how you can sell, in this case, values around sustainability up and down the spiral. So it starts down with like tribal stuff, how you could talk to kids, and then it moves all the way up through every stages and talks about hot and cold button issues. And then once it gets to integral stages, it talks about this kind of way of using language as buckshot to be able to really resonate with multiple people in a single message, where you can use different words that are going to get in and touch with some of the major core values of different people in the spiral. And I hear it too in marketing when I listen, when I'm like at grocery stores and stuff like that. Here, we're a family store and your hometown co-op and, like all these kinds of things, it's like the family and the hometown. This is appealing to tribal, to blue, the co-op where you can get the best value, the appeal to orange. So these are well-crafted messages that are using language like buckshot to be able to resonate with tons of people. And it's super skillful. And so this is one thing I would say our governance systems like CoLab and Holocrasy, these tension processing systems and the ability to move through meetings quickly and make actual decisions and come to real conclusions about the stuff. This is a tool that would be hugely helpful to the leadership of these kinds of communities for us to be able to bring all these tensions to the table, to skillfully process them, to be able to move on with real things that we can do to help the movement grow and do better. Anyways, these are just some of my ideas about how you could take some of these things into the leadership and really start to benefit with them. And of course, yeah, teaching within the community about these distinctions, they should resonate with them. I feel like the integral movement and the Zeitgeist movement should go hand in hand. I'm actually hoping that once we get this integral handbook out for the integral movement, we get the integral website together for the integral emergentist revolutionary movement. Here pretty soon, we're going to be getting our dish together. And I'm hoping that part of what we'll be doing is we'll be teaming up with things like the Zeitgeist movement that are close and hopefully integrating a lot of their membership and definitely a lot of their ideas and practices, the Venus Project and all these kinds. I mean, there's so much great dish that Zeitgeist movement brings to the table. Again, if you're not aware about that stuff, go spend some time. I would also suggest to people, and you can also find these videos on my YouTube page. There's a guy, his name is Troy Wiley, and you can find his videos on my YouTube page. And he has made what he calls Integral Zeitgeist, which is an integral analysis of the integral movement and community as of right now. And he also made Neo-Tribal Zeitgeist, which is talking about the Zeitgeist stuff in integral language. These videos are super cool. I will post all of this stuff down below in the description. Thanks so much to everybody who was hanging out today. I love you guys so much. It's great to be able to have these awesome in-depth philosophy conversations with you. Such a beautiful thing to be able to get into this stuff like once a week or every other week. Definitely keep on checking in. I'm going to continue to do these things bi-weekly until you don't have any more questions for me or it starts being boring or, Okay, so let's sum up now. If you're watching this on YouTube later, or hey, if you're watching it on Facebook, smash like, subscribe, ring my bell, all that good stuff. Support me on Patreon. Make sure you do that. Get that merch. Oh, I got my awesome mug in the microwave. Hey, remember this painting? If you haven't seen the time-lapse video of this painting, you should definitely check it out. Where's my freaking coffee? What'd you do with my coffee? You stole it, didn't you? Okay, I'm just being silly. All right, signing off. I love all of you. Thanks so much for hanging out. Peace!